This is a book review of Nancy by John Stanley. It's part of the John Stanley Library, as it says there on the back. There's some obviously information there. It's from Drawn and Quarterly. The book came out in 2010. There's 152 pages. It's fully colour all the way through. Slightly unusual. I'm just going to quickly show you there some of the pages there. And I will just quickly go through and review the book. This is one of the most unusual archive collections I've ever bought, I have to say, because this is it. This is near enough it in terms of information about the book's contents. There's no index, no contents, no introduction. There is a biography at the back, John Stanley, one page. But that's it. It's also got information, obviously, it's collected from issues 167 to 169 of the Dell comic book series. Now, I don't know what they were. I mean, it would be nice to have had a little bit more information. Summer Camp FC 1034, 1959. Now, was that the title? Was it 1959? I'm not certain. Is this all the comics in 1959, or is it? It's really not much detail to go on, unless you, of course, research and go off and find a little bit more detail. That's it. Obviously, script and layout by John Stanley, finished art by Dan Gormley. You've got quite a bit of wasted space, as far as I'm concerned. That could have been filled up with a really decent information-packed introduction, and I would have loved that, because I do love introductions. Now, there's hardly information in terms of this is volume 2. There's nothing on the front, nothing on the spine. Only mentions here Nancy volume 2, just there. So you've actually got there's no page numbering, so you can't go through and say, oh, good stories on page 100. I can't do that. So it's very odd. So no information, no page numbering, no contents. It's very unusual. However, if you want to find out more about the John Stanley, a little bit more information about obviously Nancy and all those the Dell stories, this book is superb. Funny books, really very brilliant book. Excellent. Totally recommended that one. Now, in terms of the comic book, well, I'm just going to go and quickly show you. I'm going to show there. Now, the colouring in this goes up and down. I will go on about that in a little bit later, but just want to quickly show the size. It is actually exempt. I've got Mighty Mouse. I haven't got a copy of Nancy, but I've got there. You can see it's the same. So that obviously I haven't resized it in any way. I assume this is from the comic book pages, because I assume has been scanned. These are not original art pages. It would be lovely if they were, or any sort of printing proofs or whatever. No, I think this is from, there's no recolouring, because there's a lot of bits where some of the colouring is all over the place. So, but I have to say, this is 1959, this old issue, and it's sharper and better quality in many ways than this archive edition. And personally, I always think archive editions should be at the pinnacle of archive sort of quality. So I'm just going to go through the book now. The stories are excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed the stories. There's no criticism whatsoever about the stories. I think that there's a nice mix of, there's like 8 pages, there's 1 pages, 2 pages kind of thing. And there's lots of different stories, like with Sluggo, obviously there, just on his own. You've got stories, obviously, Nancy and Sluggo. There's a right mix of stories. And they're really very charming little tales, well told, all nice conclusion. They live in a sort of ideal world of walking around with it. They do have some interaction with adults, but there's a feeling that sort of it seems to be, for my mind, a permanent summer, even though, of course, straight away here's a scene here, lovely bit of winter, which, of course, is just made up because of the magic powers, obviously, Oona's house. There's also these various, she has some dream sequences. I'm rich, she says there. So you've got lots and lots of great little, and also you've got this sculpture story here, sculpture one. So there is interaction with that, but it still always feels to me sort of like separate. But that's really, really good. And I'm certain that you're probably coming to this already having a reasonable idea about what you're expecting from Nancy. There are sort of, I'm not really certain what you can say. I suppose obviously like Little Lulu comes to mind, all those sort of characters. There's lots of Little Marge, there was loads, and there's quite a few, many other little, this person, little Aubrey, whatever, similar sort of things. And they're good. They're still very enjoyable. Sometimes she meets up with people who are super rich, and also meets up with loads of other people. And it's And of course, you've got other groups of friends. My boyfriend is studying medicine. You've got to look in the drugstore, that sort of thing. Yeah, that's really, if that was the way you think. But you've got some great, a thin sliced loafer. I wouldn't even talk to that little loafer. So you've got to go off on a sort of, great. However, stories, absolutely brilliant. A lot of wasted space. This is the thing. I mean, I just think information would have been great in this sort of thing. You know, a bit of detail that just, you got this, like you even got half a page one there. So you've got a little lovely half-page story. I think that's just great. But in terms of the colouring, I think the colouring is quite pale. And I think and unfortunately I haven't got an original Nancy to compare it with. I would love to have had a copy so I could actually look at it and say if that's slightly brighter, darker, whatever. But it just, also the line work itself is quite smudged. Obviously they've gone for this faux sort of paper. It's very weird. I would have preferred it on white paper and also cleaned up. I'm a fan of that sort of thing. Now, other people I know do not like that. They prefer it to be like it was the original 1959 comic. So that's fine. I mean, everyone has different ways of looking at it. But I just feel that when you look at this, and there's a lot of bits and pieces of this, when you look at some of the line work's either smudged or very thin in places as well, and faded in places. Just hasn't been, a little bit of touch-up would have been nice in this, just to make it just a bit sharper. Got the art gallery. I love this story, the art gallery. The off-key kid obviously goes off and with a musical instrument. This guy comes along, obviously, instead of leaving my money to say, I'm going to buy you an instrument so you can live on and create all this great music. Anyway, of course, that's the bank hold up. There's just story after story after story all the way through. And even actually when you do have adults in the story, they're quite often treated very unusually. Nancy, the muddy lake. Archery is more fun than swimming. Who wants to shoot first? Really? I love swimming, I must admit. No swimming, all the kids all sort of disappear, so go off. However, going back to the thing, archive edition, I would have hoped this would have been slightly superior quality in terms of cleaned up. I would have loved that, but it just, unfortunately, it seems to be a thing. But it's, and even and there's a lot of, like here with the writing is a bit quite rough in places. And that, another thing should be shown. Quite often in some archives I've seen where they've actually just changed the actual writing. They've actually gone and replaced it with proper, clean, sharp writing. Personally, I like that. It doesn't worry me, but because the original comics exist. It's not like you're getting rid of the old comics. And I just think that you want them in a nice, all the way volumes of books, and you want them as amazingly brilliant as possible. Sadly for this volume, I just didn't feel that it's really was that. But you may have a see. The thing is also, and I don't like criticising these sort of things, because at the end of the day, I'm quite certain that it's possible that maybe this is just my copy. Maybe I've got a copy that is slightly smudged in places, maybe slightly rough in places. Where, and I've had that. Where I've had copies where I've read reviews and people say, "Oh, this is amazing! This is like the most sharpest, brilliant colours, amazing," and you think, "Well, that's different from my copy." So maybe I've just got something slightly that's, and I will have to put it down to that. But it's just could have been so much better. I think that's because the stories themselves, like I say, old Nancy and Sluggo, just great stories, real good fun. So that's Nancy, Volume 2, and unfortunately, like I say, you wouldn't know that it's Volume 2. Someone's going to point out it's very tiny, right? No, it's not. I can't see Volume 2 listed at all on this at all, which is a pity. But still, there is also a Volume 1 and there's also a Volume 3. I don't know if there's a Volume 4 or not. No idea. But they're the only 3 volumes I know of in this series.